I have been obsessed recently with these DungeonMorph dice that I was sent by the designer, and I want to talk to you about what they are, how you can use them. They are intended for GMs to be able to literally roll up a dungeon setting pretty quickly on the fly. But as the soloist, they are incredibly useful as well. So let me explain what they are and show you some different ways to use them and give you my thoughts about why I think they're so great and why I've become just a little bit obsessed with them to the point of kind of just keeping one in my hand sometimes when I'm in a meeting at work. The dice come in various sets, and I'm going to show you 3 different sets. There are more sets on the website than I have here to show you, but the sets that I will show you are the Delver set, the Spelunker set, and the Voyager set. And each of them are a set of 6 dice with 6 unique sides, so you're getting 36 different pieces of a dungeon that you can create, and they are included. They'll list what they have. So in this one, we have altars, forges, guard or barracks rooms, a mezzanine or a hall room, something that's designated quaint or unusual, and then it says +1 random bonus die, and that's the Voyager set. They are all also uniquely numbered, so you could really actually roll them as just a D6 as well if you wanted to do that. They are oversized, so here by comparison is a regular D6, but you could roll them as D6s, I suppose. And you could as well use the numbers on them to create your own random tables if you wanted. For example, you had a D6 table, and if you rolled a 2, you would add into this room, say, a trap. Or if you rolled for every 6, that would be some type of treasure. You could use the numbers that way as well. And then, of course, the etchings on the die facing, you could interpret as you wish. There is a kind of small, for my eyes at least, but there is a map key on each box, and so you could look up the symbol that is on the dice to see what is suggested by the particular key here. So those would be doors or secret doors or a tree or a dais or a water or a pool, a magic field, etc. Or you could also get the accompanying DungeonMorph book of modular encounters, and this book is keyed toward the 3 dice sets that I have here to show you, the Delver, Trailblazer, and Voyager edition. And I'm going to show you a little bit how this works because it's super clever, and it also is keyed to these dry erase DungeonMorph cards that I'm going to show you. The 3 dice sets are keyed as well to these individual cards, and the cards look like this. They are dry erase, which is really cool if you're into dry erase, and they come in this a stack of them. So if you, for example, rolled the dice, I've just misplaced it now, but if you rolled the dice showing this face on it, you would look up in the book and you would find this exact piece of dungeon. And for each entry in this book, you are given an encounter concept and a description of what could happen in here. So you could either interpret this on your own, or if you had the book, you could read the book. And in fact, the book itself will work. You could have simply just the book and use this without the cards because each picture there is a picture on here. You would need to find a way to randomize it yourself. But if you had the dice or the cards, you could randomize it that way by rolling the dice and then looking up what you found in the book. So to give an example here, well, let's just take the example I just rolled. So I just rolled this one here, 2 with a little 0, and we can go to the table of contents here. So here you have what it looks like on the die. Here you have what it looks like on the dry erase card, and here you have it in the book. And the encounter concept given, the suggestion given for this encounter concept, this area is a nexus or gate to another reality where the life forms are not understandable by humans or demi-humans. You have the main star-shaped room is the main chamber. It's dark and organic. The walls seem to twitch and the floor feels like a muscle. The ceiling is 20 feet high and seems to be made of crisscross tendrils, or are they veins? A large pool of strange liquid dominates the center of the room. Its bottom cannot be seen, but waves cover its surface and a black mass moves around. It goes on to describe what the liquid is and what the 5 sections of the stars are for. There are descriptions of NPCs that could be here, worshipers, believing that becoming one with the entity is their purpose in life. They will act to defend it if anyone attacks it. Each worshiper is a monk or a cleric. Once per day, an unwilling victim is thrown into the pool. On occasion, one or both of the worshippers performing the sacrifice are pulled in with their victim. There is the 1-by-1 room that is described, which is, I guess, this room up here. A number of unwilling sacrifices are kept here, typically 1d4 in number. The victims may be of any sentient race, including goblinoids. The large alcove, which is, not sure which one that would be, maybe one of these, contains a small shrine to the creature, and then it gives you additional ideas, alternate substances in the pool, as well as referring you to the included appendix, which is pit contents for ideas. So we'll take a look at that in a second. And then there's also alternate scenarios. So perhaps this is a museum and the 5 sections are displaying artifacts of a different area, or maybe it's an aerial duel arena so that it has cables that are suspended from the ceiling and the walls have weapon racks and spikes, and the main chamber is the place where the fighting occurs. The ritual combatants are brought to this chamber where they're strapped into the harnesses, swinging over the pool and arming themselves from the racks on the walls, trying to do each other in. So like just in this one page here, there's so many different themes and options that you could have, that you could just roll this one dice, not even the 6 that you get in the box, and have a ton of story seeds that you could go with. And this is all system neutral, so you could bring whatever system you were playing into this story and create characters that would then be in this world. Let's take a look at the appendix here, because in addition to all of the details that you get, and we'll take a look at a couple more, all the details you do get a bunch of appendices, and you have a lot of detail lists. They were referring to the pit items here. You can see there are altar items, there's alternate monsters, these are D6 lists, acquired items, there are the arena combatants. So perhaps if you were going with that idea, you could roll any of these, but you could roll a different D6 and get leftover Sal and Ontiek, who is domesticated by a goblin handler. Sal takes care of corpses, litter, and garbage, and in a pinch can bolster the arena's defenses. So you can get an NPC right there just by rolling that D6. And here's what lies at the bottom of the pit, and we can look and see creatures falling are slowed by a magical effect and land safely. They end up in a new random dungeon geomorph cavern. So if you perhaps rolled up this as what was in this pit, you would then maybe take another dice and roll, well, where did they end up? This is where they end up, and you could turn to the description here and see what that would be. So let's actually take a look and see what that is. They've fallen down into some caves, and the concept here is it's caverns, and there's a small band of sentient amphibians, lizard folk, frogmen, turtle people, etc., living in a cave accessible only from underwater. Oh, it turns out there is the water here, so that's the concept. That turns out to be a concept that connects like so. You have a large cavern described, you have a hidden cavern described, some additional ideas for it, and some alternate scenarios again. So each of these pages contains not only a main description, but some other alternate descriptions to give just a ton of variety here. And we can see the back of the book says that it is encounter designs are system neutral, easy to fit into your game world and campaign. Alternate scenarios are included. It works with these dice sets and cards, and you can use a design for a small dungeon or place several together for a longer dungeon crawl. Or, as I'm showing here, you could just build it out organically to see what happens. There is the map key here, which I believe matches up to the one that I personally have trouble reading. So this is a little bit easier for me to read that comes with the book. And you could pair it up and see what you're getting here in terms of, for example, some stairs are indicated here going down into this area, because you don't need to refer to or even use what is suggested in the encounter book to use these dice. And of course, you could simply just take a bunch of dice, however many rooms you wanted, and roll them up and just create and draw a map this way and interpret it as you wished without referring to the book. And there you have the map, and you could use the key if you wanted to refer to what you got and create your own story based on that key. Ditto for using these cards. Now, I don't have them randomized here, but you could randomize these cards and just pull them in. As you can see, these are the cave system cards versus like a constructed structure. You could put these together or keep them separately and just build them out. They all do line up, and you could, based on that and based on the key, have the same situation referring to something slightly larger and using the dry erase if that was something that appealed to you to keep track of where you were, and you could see how they all line up even if they are from different sets. And there you have a whole world that you can explore, again referring, if you wanted to what the particular iconography is here, or just using this on your own to create something. So with these 3 dice sets, there are 102 different sides, and this book has maps and encounter ideas for all 102 of them. As I said, you could use any of these things independently. You don't need to have all of them. It's really depends on your preference in terms of the physical aspect of what you like in terms of cards or dice and how much suggestion you want. But the outline of if you were using just the book, you would, I think, need to create a way, if you wanted to randomize it, I think you would need to create a key system so that you could roll on a different table and get something random here, unless you wanted to just choose a random room or a random oddball, and then you could roll a d6 to come up with it that way. And here's a look at the box itself with the dry erase dungeon and cavern map cards, and the back of each card is a mirrored version of the front, and it has the map key here on the back. A little easier to read, again, for me, than the map key on the back of here. So if that's a consideration, in addition to the type of physical object you are getting, you might consider that. This box has the equivalent of these 3 sets of dice in it. And then along with these dice sets from Inkwell Ideas are a whole bunch of random cards. And I want to show you some of the card decks that they have, because these I use in a different way. And what I'm looking at right here, I'm playing a 4 Against Darkness, or I'm starting to create a 4 Against Darkness game for myself, and I am using these cards to represent my character. So this is my cleric. I've got a druid, and as it turns out, my druid has a great familiar owl, and this card happened to have an owl on it. This is my gnome. This is the version of Fidget the Gnome that's appearing in my 4 Against Darkness game that I'm working on. And this is a scion that I am playing. And for me, having the portraits here of the characters really brings something to the game. So you can use these portraits. There are they come from these 2 fantasy decks, and I'm just using them for their pictures. However, the decks also have descriptions, and this was the other card I really like as a druid, although I think I'm going to go with this one just because it happens to have the owl pictured. The back of each of the cards does have stats that you can use for kind of any D20 based system and import that into what you're doing. So we are given values for strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. We have an armor class number in ascending and descending, and we have some hit points. We also have the chaotic good. We're indicated what the class and race is. And we're given a name, a personality, what their strengths are, what their quirks are, distinguishing features, and background for them. So you don't need to use these stats, but they would work if you were running anything, obviously, based D&D based or based off of D&D, and you could figure out how that would work with your own particular rule set, or you could just use them for the pictures. And in this particular case, as I said, this is looks like a character I often play in games, this human wizard. The art style is, I think it's great. It's a little bit varied, so there's a variety of art styles here, and the artists are credited. They're not the same artist, as you can tell, for each of these. So here's another human wizard. This is a fantasy deck. So we'll just take a look here at this character here. This is another chaotic evil. I guess that's evil on her face. She appears weak and defers to others, pretending to admire them. This puts people off guard. Underneath, she churns with jealousy. She is unhappy, so she uses what makes others happy. She cannot steal their joy, only its source. Her command of magic is deep-rooted and strong. She is an ice-cold lair with silky smooth manners. Her quirk is, when she feels it important to make a point, she puts her hands on the sides of a person's face and says, "Look into my eyes, see my truth." This is a sure sign she's lying. And we have her background, which is including poisoning the king's favorite, so she got promoted. So not the nicest character to perhaps focus on. Here's a neutral character steeped in alchemical energy. He has many signs of mutation, and sometimes they change. So lots of different kinds of, here's a human rogue. She'll do the dirty work, the boring work, the things no one else wants to do. She is a masterful manipulator of her favor bank, cultivating allies and managing enemies. So lots of flavor here in this deck, and we're going to take a look at a couple of other characters from this adventurer's deck here, which includes some random tables for quick names, for actions, moods in an adventure. What else is the adventurer managing? Some complications, just some quick tables to roll up here. This particular deck does not have stats on it, but otherwise it has the same kind of personality, quirks, possessions, backgrounds as the other deck. This is the first NPC Portraits Adventurer deck. And we can see, we'll just flip through the art here, give a sense of what we got. I'd like to run this character into something. And you could You could really start out this way. This is an apprentice mage. She's smart and capable, but she's gentle. You could really start out this way by just getting some cards and pictures that you like and characters that you would like to be spending some time with in whatever rule set you choose. But what would card decks be without a creature deck? And the creature deck that I'm going to show you here is the Fae, Constructs, and Wildlife creature deck. And in my mind and my plan here, somehow I'm going to pull out the creatures that are all Fae and put them into this 4 Against Darkness situation that I'm creating here, and have myself maybe the Fae and the plant one. So here's a look at, that's the guy on the cover. This is a treant. So you're not getting any stats here, but you're getting where they live, what their prey is, how they're organized, their strengths, their weaknesses, allies or enemies, their tactics in combat, and then some suggestions to run them or place them. And again, the art style in this deck is it's varied, and that's an animated object. It's a strange picture of an animated object because it looks more like a vista to me. But here's a dire ape, an assassin vine. This deck's a little dark, like visually dark. Dire bat. And they are usually selfish, ignoring everything that is not a food or a threat. Here's a gelatinous cube, and you'll see this card has the necessary credit information for the use of these monsters. It's pretty illegible, but it is here. So the gelatinous cube, again, given it is an ooze, and it is giving the tactics, the strengths, the weaknesses, what their prey is, etc. And then the last thing I want to show you are some side quest decks that I was sent that have each single card has an entire adventure suggestion on it, as well as on one side a map or an image, and then on the back a whole suggestion. So this is based on arcane academies. Everything in here is concerning wizards at a school or a group of wizards, and you just simply draw a card. These maps cards do not go together, but you would just simply pull in a card. You have your image on one side, and then you have an entire adventure seed here. So we'll take a look at what is offered on just a single card. So it gives you the overall title, Forbidden Lore. It has to do with dark forces, a mystery, and a book. One of the pupils steals a forbidden book. The PCs need to find out what he is up to and prevent it. Gives you suggestions for getting the PCs involved, so they might see the student rushing past them with the stolen book, or on duty, the PCs notice a dangerous book is missing. Only one student has been in this part of the library. And then it gives you suggestions for different types of encounters. A student wants to either summon a devil to fulfill his wishes, or find a cure for his father's sickness, or brew a love potion to seduce his love interest, or bring back his deceased sister. So that's some very different directions you could go in. The student's roommate tells the PCs that he hides a weird chest under his bed, and under that they find various things, or perhaps the student spots the PCs snooping and attacks. And then there's even follow-up adventure ideas like something to do with the student's family, or the book having its own mind and luring in another student. So you could just choose one card and use that as a story seed. The Broomstick Rally. This is a race, wilderness, and sabotage type of encounter. The mountains and forests near the school may be dangerous and dark, but they are also the site of the Broomstick Rally. Each year, teams race to be first, and same kind of organization, something to get the PCs involved, encounters, as well as follow-up ideas. So these are all centered on magical wizards, but they are quite different, as you could see, and as you could even tell that just from the pictures on the front of the cards. This is something to do with Halloween, with alternate dimensions or traps. And this is a rival wizards in a village, and there's an investigation, and you are tasked with guarding the human village from some violent wizards that are coming to attack it. So lots of different, if you want to do something focused on wizards and aren't sure what, there are in this deck, I think it's 54 completely different suggestions for adventures with alongside kind of more suggestive maps than perhaps actual maps that you would need to use, but nevertheless, lots of suggestions for wizardry. And this is a similar one that has to do with monster hunts. So these are map cards where the focus of them is a monster. And what's great about this is it comes with a couple of cards that list the monsters. So if you want to do something, for example, involving a Hydra, you can look to that card number and select it. If you want to include a wolf or a rust monster or whatever you want, you can seek that out in the cards here, and it will give you the card where the monster is either featured prominently or featured in a secondary manner, and you can see, same format, what this thing is called, how to get the PCs involved, some suggestions of encounters and follow-up ideas. On the other side are the maps, and in some cases, or in this case, this is a monster with a sort of odd, out of context, I think, like cartoony picture. But most of these cards are the maps and the location for the monsters that you would find, and then the back of them. So here, this is this has to do with the genie, for example, and this one has to do with the Hydra, and the same kind of format. So in this particular case, I think the way to use it is probably mostly looking up the monster that you want. I mean, you could just pull in a random card based on, I guess, the picture that you liked, but if you were working on something that had a particular kind of enemy, you might choose that card itself as opposed to doing a random selection. And then the last deck that is here are these side quest decks with pulp adventures, and they have same format, but this is really kind of all over the place in terms of theme. And again, one side is the picture, and you could just see from the pictures like totally different kind of scale, as well as this is something to do with escaping Atlantis, and this is something to do with the lost library of the SARS. Same type of format with how to get involved and follow-up adventure ideas. This would be just, you'd have to be prepared to be anywhere in the world for this to work randomly, because it is all over the place. Here is something to recover a lost jewel in Venice that was long thought destroyed. And it says that while most quests must take place before or after a specific date, many can be set anywhere in the first half of the 20th century. So I think these are based on kind of his real world. Most of the ideas are based on real world lost artifacts and historical mysteries, as for example, the Atlantis one we just showed. So if you want to go far in a field, like literally, you could just pull something random in here and build it out. So that is a look inside some supporting materials from Inkwell Ideas. And as I said, what I am currently working on using most are the, I think I accidentally put my party away, but left with this character that's going to be my scion, using the cards to give imagery to my Forgets Darkness characters, and they will be traveling through some areas that I roll up using these dice, and based off of whatever I find in the encounter book that strikes my fancy, and then going to my extensive 4 Against Darkness library to find the necessary tables that would support what I find here as I roll it up. But I think this could be used with all sorts of D20 based systems, especially with regard to picking up the stats that are on some of the cards.